Hello everybody, welcome back. So today we're going to be building a full stack LeetCode clone application, and at the end we're going to deploy it to Vercel. We're going to be using the latest technologies, which are React with Next.JS on top of it. We're going to use TypeScript to make our code easy to debug by adding types and interfaces. We're also going to be using Tailwind CSS for our styles. It'll make our development process 10 times faster. And lastly, we're going to be using Firebase for our authentication and database. Besides all these, we'll be using a bunch of really popular NPM packages, so I hope it'll be a really fun project to build. And before we get into the coding, let me just give you a quick demo of what we'll be building. So in our homepage, we have a list of problems where we can see so far we have 10 problems, but I will show you how you can add more of these. And for each problem, we have the title, difficulty, category, solution, as well as the status, which will come back later. And when we click one of the solutions, it'll take us to the related video solution, and it'll show this YouTube video. But so far, it navigates us to my own YouTube channel because this is how I set it up. And I will show you how you can integrate your YouTube channel into this application. So we can watch it from here, or we can click to this link. It'll take us to the YouTube. So we can close that, and so we can visit the problem pages. So let's go to this to some problem page, which will take us to this URL, and we have our description site with examples, constraints, as well as our code editor and test cases. So we can switch between these test cases. It'll update the UI, and so we can write our code here. It have JavaScript support so far, and we can change the font size by getting these settings, and we can toggle between the full screen, exit full screen. We can like problems, but so far we cannot because we need to log in, which we'll do in a minute. And we can submit problem, and again we need to log in to submit that. And now let's try to log in, which I have already account. So I'm gonna try to log in. It logged us in, and now we're in this page. Since I already solved this problem, it'll fetch this code solution from the local storage. And now since I've solved it, I have this status check. And now let's try to like this. It'll send a fetch request to our database, which is gonna be Firebase Firestore, and then it'll update the UI. So now let's try to submit our code. We'll get this beautiful celebration text as well as our toast. So this is what we call toast, this alert. And now let's try to make this code doesn't work. So let's say I+1. And now let's try to submit that. It'll say one or more test cases failed. So that's cool. We're also handling the errors. We have our timer, so we can open that or we can reset that. So we can see our email when we hover over our profile image. We can log out, and yeah, this is gonna be pretty much it. Also, we can go to the next problem. We even have these examples with images. We can go to next one, next, and this should be the end of it. And like in the problem page, we see that, or like in the home page, we see that we have 10 problems. But here, after the fifth one, watch what's gonna happen when I click this. It'll take us to the first one, and it is because I only added test cases for all these all these 5 problems, but I will show you how you can add for these if you wanted to. And I didn't do this for my own side project because it just requires writing a bit more code, and so I basically didn't. And in the status that I said we're gonna come back later, so if you are logged in, so if you are solved that problem, it'll fetch that in our database, and it'll put that so check mark into this status column. And for these other problems, when we click one of them, it'll take us to the LeetCode original problem link. And yeah, I think this is the whole application. And lastly, we can log out, and we have, instead of a premium button, we have this support button. If you like this project and if you want to support my work, just click this link and it'll show you how we can contribute or how we can support. And otherwise, you don't need to worry because I'm just putting this content for free. So with this mushy stuff out of the way, now we can go to this authentication model or the page where we can create account, we can log in, or we can reset our password by providing an email. So let's say I fill this form and I click this, it'll send us a reset email. And when we open that in our email, we will be able to reset our password. So also we have this kind of cool image, and I think this is going to be all. And now let's get into the coding because there is a lot to cover and there is a lot to learn. Now to get started, I created an empty folder called LeetCode YouTube. You can call it yours however you want, and you'll create a terminal and we'll go to Google to get the Next.js TypeScript script to start our project. So we'll type Next.js TypeScript, we'll go to the first one, we'll take this script, copy and paste it into our terminal. So let's paste it and enter. So it'll create us an Next.js app with TypeScript configurations. So what is our project named? We can just click that to make it into our root folder. We'll click enter. Yeah, we want ESLint. We want source directory. So we don't want experimental app directory. So we'll click no. So we can click tab for aliases and we can click enter. So it'll create us our app. And once it is done, I'll be right back. Okay, now our app is initialized and now let's try to add Tailwind CSS into our app. So we'll go to Google and say Next.js Tailwind CSS, and we'll go to Tailwind CSS website. We'll already create our project, so we will install Tailwind CSS. We copy this, come to VS Code, paste it. Yes, we want to paste that. So it'll run that for us. And after that, we will need to configure our template paths, I guess. Yeah, we'll also copy this file and we'll paste it into tailwind config.js. And now back to our VS Code editor, and now we need to click enter for this as well. Okay, the configuration is done. We'll go to tailwind config.js file and we'll paste the latest thing that we copied. So I pasted my colors, and please feel free to get them from our repo. And now the last thing that we need for Tailwind CSS is to get this base components and utilities and copy them, paste it into our global.css, which is going to be in styles folder. So we can delete all of them and we can paste it. So we can save this one. And now let's try to npm run dev, where we'll get in localhost 3000. So localhost 3000, what do we get? So we got our boilerplate homepage with Next.js, and it doesn't have any styles because we just deleted them. Now we can go to the pages folder into the index.js or tsx, where we can delete all of the content here. So within the main, and we can write our own main tag with maybe with heading 1 saying hello world. And we can delete fonts, families, styles, images, and we can even delete this one, but for now let's just put it right there and save it. Go to the browser. Yep, we see it is updated. And for now, the first thing that I want to build is the authentication page, where we're going to have our navbar and this image with our models. Okay, we'll have our sign-in model, register model, and also the forgot password model. And first we're going to build the design, the UI, and then we're going to add the functionalities. So then first let's get started with this navbar and this image. So the first thing that we want to do is to delete this head tag, and we want to put it in another file, which is going to be underscore app.tsx. This is where our application starts. So this line makes it possible for our application to run. So we're going to delete this line for a second, and we'll create a React fragment, and we will paste the line that we just deleted. And then we're going to add our own head tag, where I'm going to walk you through what we are doing here. So we are adding our title, which is lead clone, and we are adding our favicon as well as our viewport. This is just some requirements that we need to give for the browser. And then we have our description, which tells what is our application is all about. And then we have these images inside the public folder that I have added, and you need to grab them from our GitHub repo. So we have our avatar, we have our favicon, hero image, logo, and another logo for authentication page. So with that being said, now let's save this file and go to our browser. We see that we got our favicon as well as our title. And now let's go to build the navbar. The first thing that we want to do is to go to inside the source folder and create another folder called components. And we are going to put all of our components into this folder. And our first component is going to be navbar, and we're going to create navbar.tsx file. And then we're going to say tfcd to get this boilerplate, which if you don't have, you need to come to this extensions tab and you need to install React TypeScript. TypeScript, if I can type. I think it was snippets. This one. So you need to install this to get these snippets, and we use the tfcd. So we can change this text with maybe navbar and save it. And then since it's gonna be inside our authentication page, we can come to this pages folder, create the auth page with index.tsx, again using our boilerplate, changing all of these indexes with auth page. And then we can again change this text with authentication page. And now if we go to url/auth, so this is our home page, and we go to authentication page, we're going to get our authentication page. So it works in a way that when in your Next.js applications, whenever you go to another page, your Next.js applications is gonna look up into this pages folder, and if there is any related folder or file name with that URL, it'll try to match that. And if there isn't, it'll return 404. Now let's try to go to login page, which we don't have. It'll give us this 404 because it'll take a look at this pages folder. It cannot see any folder called login, and it'll return 404. Okay, with all that being said, now let's try to add our markup or like class names with this authentication page. So the first thing that I want to do is to give this background as well as giving this container where everything is in the middle. So back to the VS Code, we're gonna first give this like some class name, and it's gonna be bg gradient to bottom, and from gray 600 to it is gonna be like 2-black, and then it'll also be covering the whole screen. So we're gonna say height screen, and the position is gonna be a relative in case we use any absolute. And then we're gonna have another child div. It is gonna be maximum with 7x large, and margin x is gonna be auto to center everything. And then we're gonna put our navbar. We need to import that. Well, we import it. Now let's save this one and take a look at it. It should be an auth page. Yeah, so I changed this background from this. See it's kind of getting from gray to black, where we have this bluish that going to black. I think this looks better. And now let's do the navbar. So back to the VS Code, the navbar component. So we're gonna have to delete this one and maybe put it like this and give some class names. It should be flex, item center, and justify between, I guess. Yep, and then from small screens and above, it should have padding x 12, but otherwise in below small screen is gonna be padding x 2. And then from medium and above, it should be padding x 24. And then yeah, I think this is enough for this div. And then we need to have some link, which is coming from next link. We're gonna import that, and it'll gonna have some href that will navigate us to our homepage. And for the class name, we're gonna have flex items center and justify center as well. And then height should be 20. And inside that link, we're gonna have our image, where its class name gonna be height full, and it'll be a logo.png, which we have inside this public folder. That it should be that logo in our navbar. And after this, we're gonna have another div for our button. It's gonna be flex with items dash center, and inside that we're gonna have our button that says sign should be sign in. And for our class name, we're gonna have BG brand orange. And this is where our Tailwind config.js comes into play. We can see we can see a lot of colors, and the brand orange is here. And whenever we want to use one of them, we can prefix them with this bg or text that is going to be changing either their color or their background. So for now, for this button, we want it to have this brand orange color. Okay, so moving on, we're gonna have text white color, and then padding X gonna be 2, and padding Y gonna be 1, and small screens and above, this button should have padding X as 4, and we should give it rounded MD for making it a border radius, to give it a border radius, and it'll have text small and font medium. Okay, now that looks great. And then we'll have some other classes for hover state, and it'll be on hover, text should be brand orange and bg, and hover bg should be white, like we are reversing it. And then on hover, we are also gonna have a border 2, and on hover again, we're gonna have its border to be brand orange, and yeah, let's just for now save it. And now let's take a look at in the browser. Yeah, this is our button. When we hover it, do you see this flickering effect that it gets its border and it just gets a little bit bigger? And the reason is because at first it doesn't have that border, but when we hover that, we'll get border and it just makes it grow. And in order to fix this, we'll add this border 2 in normal case, okay? Without hovering, it should also have this. But its color should be border transparent so that we don't see that. Now, if we just save this, now we hover this, we don't see that flickering effect, right? And now let's just add a bit more duration and transition into this. So we'll say transition duration 300 milliseconds and ease in out. So we save this one, we go to browser, now it is a bit smoother. Okay, now if we just zoom out, we'll see that it is identical to our original one, and other than this background. Now let's add our image, and then we're gonna create these models. So back to the VS Code, and we save this one. I think we should go to our authentication page. Yeah, now here we're gonna add some more divs with some classes after the navbar. So below it we're gonna have, well, actually let me just create this div, and for the class name it should have flex items center, and then it should justify center. And now for the height, it should have, we will use the calculate function, which is going to take calc 100 vh, so 100 view height minus 5 rem, which we give it for navbar. Okay, and then we're going to use this pointers events none and select none for, so we're not going to let users to select our images. And we're gonna say image that is gonna be inside the public folder and hero.png, and then we're gonna make this alt to like our hero image. Now if you save this one, we go to our browser, that we see our image, and now as you can see I cannot drag and drop this image because of this select none and pointer events none. When I tab this over, I cannot select this image. Yeah, okay, so this is for our authentication page. Now let's go to and build this, I think it should be the sign-in model. So we see there is a lot of models in this page where we have 3 models, and there is something common in all of these models, which is this background overlay and this close button and this orange card. So for that reason, we're gonna create some layout with our models. So we'll create our models folder, and inside we're gonna create our signup model.tsx. We're going to create our login.tsx. We're going to create our resetPassword.tsx. And then this is going to be our AuthModal.tsx. This is going to be our layout. Okay, so far we can say tfcd and save this one. Now, as I said, in sign-in model or in login model, we're going to have this title and we're gonna have these two inputs, this button and all these jazz. And in our register we're gonna have like different inputs and different buttons, but the common thing is gonna be this close button, this card, and this overlay. That's why we create this AuthModal overlay, so that we don't write the same code over and over again. So for this AuthModal, I will just copy and paste some HTML and CSS, and I will walk you through this. And please don't get angry with me just because I am copying and pasting some code. So this is like, it's gonna be pretty basic HTML and CSS that you don't need to worry about. And so let me just copy and paste that. Okay, now I copied it and I'm gonna paste it just like this, where we have our overlay with some div with some background colors with close buttons. And actually, let me just populate it in our screen. It should be auth model that is coming from components folder. And if we go to our browser, not to React icons, but we'll get this. So this is our component that we just added with some overlay background, and we have this part. It doesn't have any content, that's why it looks very small, but we're gonna add it soon. And it has this close button with some border radiuses, etc., etc. So this is the basic HTML for that, and with some CSS classes. So since this X looks pretty ugly and we're going to be using a lot of icons, we'll come to our terminal and we'll install React icons. So we're going to say npm install React icons. So while it downloads that, we can go to Google and write React icons. We'll get to this GitHub IO link where we can now type it down any icons that we want to get. So for now, I want to get this IO close icon. I will copy that and come to my VS Code. I will paste it just like this, and it doesn't autocomplete for me for some reasons. So I will come here and import that with GitHub Copilot. So I'll save that, and maybe we should give it some classes to make it a bit bigger. So height 5, width 5. Now save this. I'll take a look at our browser. Yep, it looks almost identical with our demo. So I think this is all for our layout. Now we need to create our login and like reset password and sign up all that components. And we're going to be showing them inside here. Okay, so let's say for now, let's show the login, in which we need to import that. So we're going to use tfcd. We will say this is our login, save that, and come to here. We're going to import it and save it. Now we see that we got this login, and now let's make it look identical with this one. So in our login component, we are gonna need to have some form, right? Because it's gonna have our inputs, and at the end we're gonna try to submit that. So for that, let's just add some classes. Which will be space y6, padding x should be 6, padding bottom should be 4. And then we're gonna need some maybe heading 3, which is gonna say like sign in to Leet clone. And then it'll have some class names. It'll be text x large, font medium, right? Font is gonna be medium, and text is gonna be white. And then we're gonna have some of our divs, which is gonna be container for our label and our of our inputs. So for this one is gonna be email HTML4, and we're gonna give some class names to our label. It is gonna be text small, font is gonna be medium. Yep. Oops. It's gonna be font medium. It's gonna be display block, and margin bottom is gonna be 2. And then we're gonna have text gray 300. And then in our label, it's gonna say your email. And then after this label, we're gonna have our input where it's gonna be type of email, and then name of it, let's put it just like email as well. And ID, it should be email because this HTML4 is gonna be referring to this ID. And then obviously it's gonna have a lot of classes. And let's start with by border. So border is gonna be 2, outline none, and on smaller screens and above it's gonna be text small and rounded LG. And then we're gonna have on focus state, it should be ring blue um, 500. And then also on focus state, we're gonna have border blue 500, and maybe that should be a block with full with padding 2.5. And let's see, it'll have BG gray 600. It'll have border gray 600 as well, or maybe 500. And then we're gonna add some classes for placeholder. It's gonna be gray 400, and text maybe should be white. Now let's just try to save this one. And before that, let's just add also the placeholder for that. So placeholder, maybe it should be something like John, or maybe like name at company.com. So if we save this one, and now let's go to the browser, you'll see this like almost identical with this one, right? If we delete this, it looks pretty similar. And then we're gonna copy and paste this div, which is gonna be almost the same thing with changing this content. So your password, right? Your password, and this should be, well, let's just change all of them to password. Password, and for this maybe we could something like this. And I think that should be it for this one. Yeah, it also looks pretty similar. And then we're gonna have our button, where it should be button, and then it'll have type of submit, and then it'll have some classes again. So it should be width full and text white, and in focus state it'll have focus ring blue of 300, and then it'll have font medium. Also around it should be LG, and then we're gonna go to down maybe like this to give our a bit space, and text small, padding X gonna be 5, padding Y is gonna be 2.5, and then text center, um, and also we're gonna have background brand orange, our good color, and then on hover we're gonna say background brand orange but with S. Okay, and then in our button we're gonna say maybe like login, and after that we're gonna have another button that tells to like did you forgot your password. Okay, so we're gonna have another button, and let me just scroll down to make it a bit cleaner. And for class names, it's gonna be flex with full and justify end. And then inside this, we're gonna have maybe an A tag. Okay, so this is not really semantic, but it'll gonna do that for us. So for href, that could be going anywhere, not going anywhere. It's gonna be class name with text small and with block and text brand orange. And then on hover state we actually want to have this underline, and also it should be with full, and also text should be on the right. So with that, we're gonna add our text that says forgot password. Last but not least, we need to create another div which is gonna have again a lot of classes that says not registered by with a question mark, and we're gonna give some class names with text small and font medium and like text gray 500. And then inside this we're gonna create an A tag again with an href, and it's gonna have some class names that says text blue to 700, and on hover we want to underline that, and inside that it will say create account. So we kind of waste a lot of time by writing this HTML and CSS instead of me if I just copy and paste all of these. So I think from here on out I'll be just copying and pasting a lot of HTMLs, and I will of course explain them, walk you through them, but I don't think that I'm gonna be writing that much again because it just takes a lot of time, and it is pretty basic thing, and I'm sure that most of you guys know this. So with that being said, now let's just save this one, go to our browser. Yep, this is the, okay, so this is what we see here in here. So maybe this one should be text gray 300. And now, yeah, almost the same. And we can give some, we can do this by giving some space to here. And yeah, I think this is all for our login page. Now we're gonna copy all this from this form. Okay, we copy this, and then we're gonna go to this sign up, and then we are gonna again do tfcd, and then from here we're gonna paste that thing that we just copied in here. So save this one. So inside our auth model, instead of showing login, now we're gonna show sign up, and we're gonna be changing this dynamically depending our users input. Okay, but for now we're gonna doing this hard coded. So let's go to the create account page where we say register to LeetCode. We have display name, the email password, and let's see, we have register button. We delete the forgot button. So actually, let's just go line by line. So first we need to change this to register. So what was it? Register LeetCode. So register to LeetCode. And then instead of this only this email, we're gonna copy this and duplicate it. I did that wrong. So yeah, so that should be copy this and duplicate it, where we're gonna say your, or maybe only display name, and we can do this. We can change this by selecting all of them to display name, and for placeholder we can say like John Doe. Let's save this one to see how that look. Yeah, it already changed with display name, and instead of like doing your email and your password, I just want to change this to only email and only password. And then what I would like to do is call this as register and delete this forgot password button. So let's save this one, come to here, yeah, not registered. Instead of saying this, could say like already have an account with question mark. If so, then can you just log in? Save this one, go to the local host. Yeah, this is really what I want to have. Almost same, maybe with a little bit changes, but it's okay for me. And now let's create a reset password component, which I think I'm gonna be copying and pasting some code, which is gonna be pretty basic HTML, and then I'm gonna explain it to you. So I copied that, now I'm gonna paste it just like this, and I'm gonna save this one where we have h3 and with paragraph with the same input with label and input, so and with a button. So let's go to AuthModal and to show this. And as I said, this is so far we are showing this hard coded, but we're gonna be doing this dynamically. So we save this one. Now if we go to the local host, we're gonna see this component. And so really basic HTML, so it is this one, really basic HTML and CSS with some classes. So yeah, this is I think for the UI, and so it's time for us to make the functionalities where we're gonna create the users, they can log in, they can we're gonna send them forgot password, reset emails. But before doing that, let's actually build this functionality where our users can dynamically navigate between these models in sign in, register, and forgot password model, and they'll able to close it and reopen it from this button. And for this, we're going to be using something called global state. And the reason that we need to use that is like we have in our application, we have different parts that are using the same state. So we have a navbar here in authentication page that is different from this navbar that is in the home page. And also it is in the problem page. There is another navbar, and all of them are using the same state. And so when we click the sign in button, it also opens this model and is updating our state. So for these cases, the best way, so the best thing that we can use is global state. And for this one, we're going to be using something called Recoil. So go to Google, type Recoil.js, and you'll get to this page where it says a state management library for React that is provided by Google. So you can get started reading this documentation and installation. I will show you how we can use it in our case for this model. So in this one, and then so if you want to learn more about this, you can always check back to this documentation. So we're gonna copy this command where it says npm install recoil, and then we're going to go back to our terminal and to open up a new terminal. Then we're going to say npm install recoil, and it's going to download that. So we in recoil we have something called atoms, and each atom is a different state that we're going to be using in our application. So let's create our atoms folder inside the source, and our first atom is going to be AuthModal atom.ts. So let's actually type this one, and then you'll just see what I mean by an atom. So we're going to say import atom from Recoil, and then we're going to have our type that is going to be AuthModal state, just like this, and is open. Gonna have a field called is open, and it'll be boolean, and then it's gonna have type as login or register, or it's gonna be forgot password. And then we're gonna create our initial state, so initial auth model state, and then it's gonna be type of auth model state, and initially it's gonna be false, and type is gonna be login. And then we're gonna need to export this, so we're gonna say export const auth, so actually just like this, auth model state. And then we're going to call this atom that we imported, and then we're going to close our object with parentheses, and now we need to give it a key for Recoil to differentiate this from these other atoms that we're going to be adding. And then our default value is going to be our initial value. This is all that we need for this file, and let's just save this one, and then we need to go to our app.tsx to wrap our components or our application to be able to use the Recoil root. Okay, so we're gonna wrap it just like this, and we're gonna import Recoil root from Recoil. Now it allows us to use all of the components, hooks, functions that is coming from Recoil. And then we're going to go to our authentication page, where we're going to say only show this auth model if our auth model is the state is open. So we can say const auth model, it'll going to be equal to use recoil value. So we're only taking this so to say the value from our state, from our atom that we just initialized. So we're going to import that, and then we need to import this as well, use recoil value, and then now this auth model has this is open and type fields. So we're going to say auth model dot if it is open, only then show this auth model component. Otherwise, you shouldn't show it. And then we're going to save this one. Also, we need to save our application or like underscore app.tsx. We can close this. And now, so in our auth model, we're gonna see, let's see, we have our reset password. So for now, let's go to authentication page. So like from here, we don't see our reset password, even though we are populating it, right? Because inside our auth page is open is false. So let's go to our navbar, where when we click this button, we're gonna do some operations. So we're gonna say on click to this sign in button. We're gonna have handle click function, and let's initialize that. Const handle click. It's gonna be an arrow function that is doing nothing for now. And then we need to import another hook from Recoil. So it's gonna be use set recoil state. Yeah, it doesn't auto import that for some reason. So let me just come to here and say import use set recoil state. And then we're gonna pass our auth model state, and it's gonna be equal to our variable we called const set auth, so auth model state. And in our handle click, we're gonna mutate this state. So we're gonna take the previous values, and only we're updating this is open field. So we're gonna save this one, and now when we click this button, we're gonna see this auth model component, because when we click that, it's open becoming to true, and then it shows this auth model. And inside auth model, we are gonna do some another checks. So we're gonna say like first let's import our hooks. So it's gonna be use recoil value, and we're gonna so we're gonna pass our auth model state, and then we're gonna import use recoil value, and then we're gonna assign it to a variable called auth model. And now here down below, we're gonna say show auth model components depending on the user, what they choose. Okay, we're gonna say auth model dot type. If it is equal to login, then we're gonna show the login component that we import already. Okay, we're gonna show that. Else, if auth model is equal to sign up, we're gonna show, so it wasn't sign up actually, it should be register. And if it is register, show sign up. In the else case, it is gonna be forgot password, then please show this one. So when we save this one and come to here, so our initial state was login. That's why it shows us this login. If we refresh this, now our initial state is our auth model is closed and type is login. So when we click this, now it shows us login because it's open now is true. Now let's change the type when we click these buttons. So we're going to come to our VS Code. It should be in forgot password, which is inside this login. So here in our form where we have forgot password, so in this button we're going to also have on click, that is to handle click. And then we're going to initialize our function up here, const handle click. That should be like this for now, and then we're gonna import this const auth model, or maybe that should be, let's see, it should be actually set auth model. Set auth model state. We're gonna import these. It still doesn't suggest anything for us. That should be import use Recoil state, and then inside the handle click, we're gonna put this and make the type to register. So when we actually, it should be let's see, it should be in forgot password. That should be, so maybe we should pass some type into that. So we're gonna say handle click by sending a type that is gonna be forgot password, because we're gonna be doing the same thing in this other button. So here, if you need to create an account, you're gonna say on click. We are gonna send this by saying so that should be take us to our register page. So in here we need to take a type that is gonna be string, and then we're gonna take this type and set it just like this. So what it says, so maybe we should just copy this, and instead of string we should say it should be something like this, and now it's gonna be okay with us. And then now if we save this one and we come to here and we click this create account, it'll show us this register, and inside the register, which is going to be in the sign up model, we're going to also do the same thing. So we just copy this, and inside the here, once they click this, we're going to say on click. We're going to send our handle click function, which is we need to add into here. It is gonna, we're gonna import these and import use auth use set Recoil state, and now it should be good to go. But actually we can make this one something like this because we're not going to be using different parameters. So we're going to say that should be login. But now if you save this one and come to browser, now we click the login, we see the sign in or the login model, and in the forgot password we get this one. Now we need to be able to close this by clicking this button. So this is where we want to go to our auth model, and here we have this close button, and here we're gonna say on click, and we're gonna, maybe again we should say handle click. But now instead of doing this, I want to create a custom hook for this, because in all of our models we want to by clicking this we want to close it, and by pressing escape keyword we also want to close this model. So for this we're going to use something called use custom hooks, where we're going to initialize it down below here, and then we're going to call it from this line. It'll it'll create some abstractions that is going to be fully perfect. Okay, so let's go to down below and write our custom hook. So it's going to be a function that is we call use maybe on use close model, that could be, and inside that we are going to have again using this recoil state. Okay, we're going to say set const set auth model use recoil value, but that should be use set recoil value. I'm sorry, that should be state. And then we're gonna pass this, import this one. I don't know why it doesn't give us any suggestions, but that should be use set recoil state. And then we are gonna do create our function where we call const close model, and it's going to be an arrow function that we're going to call in our use effect. We will say set AuthModal is going to be to is open going to be false, and maybe we should make the type to log in as the default. And then we're going to have our use effect where it's going to be initialized on mount, so it's not going to have any dependencies. So we're going to say window dot add event listener on key down, and for this we can actually only call our close model, or we're going to create another function called handle escape. So just like this. And then we're going to say a cleanup function we're going to have, and it is going to be removing our event listener that is going to be we assign to this handle escape function and this key down event. And then we're going to have our function that is handle escape, that is going to be if e.key is escape, we're calling our close model function. And at the end, we're going to return this close model variable that we have. So up here, when we do const close model that we are calling from this hook that we created, now we have this function. So now if we just make it like this, close model, and also on our overlay, we also want to close our model. So on click, that should call our close model. Now save this one and I will be through it again. So when we open our model, when we click here, it is calling this close model function that we are taking from this custom hook that is at the very bottom in our file. So what it does when you click that, it'll gonna call this close model function where it says is open equal to false and type now is equal to login, and we're making the type to login because let's say we go to forgot password, and now if we close this and we open this, it doesn't stay in forgot password where it goes to login. So let's just delete this line to show you what I mean and save this. Now if we come here and let's open it, we go to forgot password, we close it. Now if we open this, that should be in the forgot password because we didn't make the type to initial value. Okay, so that's why we are adding this. And when user click the escape keywords, so now I'm gonna press that. Now I press escape, it closed, you know. So this is why we're adding this, and on cleanup, when this component we remove that from screen, it'll be removing this event listener. So this is the function that we need. I think this is we have added all of the functionalities for this. We can close it by this, clicking the overlay. Yeah, that should be good to go. Okay, now it's time for us to create our Firebase app and initialize our project, and then we're gonna add this register and login and forgot password functionalities. So head over to the firebase.google.com, and if you don't have an account, create one for free and then click this Go to Console button. It'll take us to our console where we need to create a project. So I will call mine as LeetClone or maybe LeetCode YouTube, and then I'll continue. I will disable Google Analytics and I'll create the project. So if you don't know what Firebase is, it is a backend as a service that allows us to build full stack applications easily and quickly without us needing to create our own server and maintaining this security rules, etc., etc. It just makes it fully secure and easy for us to build and create our projects. So we're going to say continue, and okay, so we are in our console where we need to initialize a web application because we have a web application. So we're going to say again maybe LeetCode YouTube and register our app. So it tells us to install Firebase. So we will come to VS Code and we'll say npm install Firebase. It's going to install that for us. And then we need to take this so to say configuration file where we're going to copy this, and then we will come to here and we're going to collapse everything in the source folder. We're going to create a folder called Firebase, and then here we can create a file called firebase.ts, and then we can paste our configuration that we just copied. So we can delete this comment lines. So what it really happening is it initializes an application for us, and then we're gonna use some services that is gonna be authentication service. So we can call it as const auth. It's gonna get our auth with our application. So that should be get auth. So we're gonna import that. So that should be import. Why doesn't give me suggestions? I don't see that. So it's gonna get auth, and then we are also gonna get our Firebase, which we are gonna be using for our database to store problem data. So we're gonna say get Firestore, and it still doesn't suggest me, so that should be import get Firestore from Firebase Firestore. And then for our server-side rendering, since we are using Next.js, we can do some optimizations. So we can say get app, and then we're going to say get apps. So here, what we're going to be doing is, so instead of initializing our app immediately, we're going to say if there isn't any app, so we're going to say get apps dot length. If there isn't any, then please just initialize an application for us. But if you already have an app, then just get that app for us. So after doing this, we're gonna export an object with our authentication, Firestore, and with our application. So this is all we need for this file, and then maybe we should also create our file called .env.local, where we're gonna put our variables into this. So I can split my page like this, and then I will say next public with this Firebase API key, and I will take them these strings, and I will just paste it just like this, and I will be doing this for all of these, and once I do this, I'll be right back. Okay, so I copy and paste all of them. Now we're gonna also do for each of them like process dot env dot, it should be next public Firebase API key, and I will again do this for all of them, and I'll be right back. So I have completed that, and now please use your own variables with these keys. So you need to use your own configuration file, because while you watch this tutorial, I would be already deleting this project. So it is not going to work if you copy and paste my variables. So with all that being said, now I think we can go to our sign up component, and we can build the registration phase. So now let's close everything that is open, and let's collapse everything. We go to our project, continue to console, and now we're gonna initialize or install a package that is React Firebase hooks. That is a great npm package that we're gonna be using for our authentication with Firebase, and later we're gonna be using this maybe for our database. So we're gonna come here and paste it. While it downloads, we're gonna go to our sign up component, where it is inside these models. So we're gonna open that, and we need some states. So for that, we're gonna initialize something like const inputs. It should be inside an array, and set inputs. Inputs, yes, it is gonna be a use state where we have email, display name, and password. So we are going to be changing them depending on what the user typed in each field. So for each of these inputs, we can select them by Control D, and then we're going to add an onClick function, or onChange actually. OnChange we're going to call handle change, and we're going to passing the name of them. So maybe we'll just say handle change input, and we're going to create our function that is going to be const handle change input, and then inside here we're gonna set our inputs. So it'll be taking the previous values, and it'll only be changing them depending on their name. So let's say our users are typing only inside this email input. It will call this function, and it'll take a look at its name, which is email. Then it'll only be updating this state. It'll not gonna mutate this display name or password, because we are destructuring them and only changing the one that we are changing. So on this form, we can call an onSubmit handler that is going to say handle register. And here, let's say const handle register that is going to be taking an event, which is React form event. and we're going to say event prevent default for preventing to refresh the page. And then we can console.log our inputs. So let's save this one and go to the browser. If we open our console, and maybe we should also console.log our inputs right here. And whenever we change some field, so as we can see, and when we initialize them, it is empty strings for all of them. And maybe say like hey@gmail.com. You can see we're only updating our email. We are not changing display name or password because in our code we are taking the name of this input, which is email. And for this one, we can put my name, and then it'll only be updating my name. It is not updating the password, and it applies for this one as well. So we could make it test12. This is what we got. Now we're going to be using this React Firebase hooks for our authentication. We're going to click this repository where it takes us to GitHub account, and then we'll come back to this authentication hooks. We'll click this where we have all of these methods, and it is pretty self-explanatory, like use sign in with GitHub, with Google, Microsoft, and use update profile, update password, email, send email verification, and a lot of stuff. So first we're going to be using this create user with email and password. So click that, you'll get to this page or to this component. We're going to copy this, come back to VS Code, and delete these lines, and then we're gonna paste it just like this. And then we need to import these, which Auth is coming from Firebase, and this one is coming from React Firebase hooks, which we need to take it from here and then paste it just like this. And then we're gonna save it. We'll go to our Firebase console to initialize and so to say authentication. So we'll come to this authentication service. We need to get started with this, and we're going to be using native providers, which is email and password. We're going to enable this, save this one. It'll initialize this so sign in method. And then so far we have not any users. So let's come to our application and let's close all these. So now we are going to try to add this registration functionality when we click this register button. So we'll come to this handle register function, and I made this function async because we're going to be doing some operations that is going to take time. So inside here, we're going to take a look at the documentation to see how did they use it. So they call this line with getting some states. We already did that. And now on click, they call this function with email and password. So let's just do the same thing and copy this line. And then we're going to come to here and we will create our try catch block to catch if there is any errors. So we're going to say alert error.message, and the type of error could be any. So here we're going to say await that function with our inputs.email and password. So this will gonna return us our new user. Okay, if it creates it, it's gonna be our user. If not, it'll be empty. So if there is not new user, we're gonna return from this function, and we're not gonna do the rest of this. So we're not gonna call the rest of this function. Okay, but if we have a user, then what we're gonna be doing is that we're gonna call this router.push, and we're gonna take our users to our home page. And for that we need to import this router from next router. So we're going to say const router that is coming from use router, which is coming from next router that we can see here. And I think this is all for this function. And now save this one, come to here and try to do this. So we have email of johndoe@gmail.com, and display name is going to be John Doe, and password could be maybe John Doe. And then we're going to register. And okay, so it take a bit time, maybe 1 second, and then it navigates us to home page. So now refresh this to see if we got our user. And great, so we got our johndoe@gmail.com. This is our first user. So this is how easy it is to add authentication to your application with like using Firebase. Okay, now we need to handle some errors. So let's say now we come to here and we try to again sign up with the same account, so johndoe@gmail.com. So let's say name is same, and so we have some password. Now as we can see, it didn't create it, and it gave us some error. If we click this, oops, this is not what we want. So let's try to do this again. So we got some 400 errors, and when we click this, we're gonna see that we got some email exists error. So this email is already exists. So for this, that's why we got this error state. Okay, so we can use inside a use effect where so we're going to initialize it like this by passing our error. So whenever error changes, this use effect will run. So we're going to say if there is any error, then can you just please alert this error with its message. So save this one. Now come to here. If we try to register with the same email and password or with the same email, that just should be enough. And when we try to register, it'll give us this email already in use. And we can click OK. And so we also should check if all of these fields are full. So we can come to here and we're going to say if now if there isn't inputs or inputs email is empty or password is empty or display name is empty, we're going to return this alert from this function, and we're going to say please fill all the fields, and we're not going to run this rest of it. Okay, so we can save this one, and now let's try to delete our display name, try to register. It'll say please fill all the fields. And now let's just use this loading state also where we got here. So when it creates our user, this loading will be true. And while it's true, let's instead of showing this register, we're gonna say if it is loading, we just show registering. Okay? And otherwise it will show register. So now watch me while I click this. So let's take this, and now I click this, it'll be loading for a second, and then it'll give us an error. If you click this, now it should be in the normal state because now loading is false. And with this, I think we are good with we are done with our registering phase. Now we can go to sign in. And for this, we're gonna come back to again this documentation, scroll to top, and let's see if we have any methods for that. Now it says sign in with email and password. We're gonna click this, and again we will take this line, copy this, go to our VS Code. That should be inside the login. We're gonna paste it just like this and import all of these dependencies, so to say. And then we need to this. So let's see how to use it. So again, they pass your email and password. So for this, we again need some states. That is gonna be const inputs, where should be in an array. We're going to destructure that, and inside use state we're going to have email and password, and then we already have our names inside our inputs, so we're going to select all of our inputs, which is 2, and then on change we're going to call handle input change, and we're going to initialize our function that's going to be const handle input change, and then here we're going to say set inputs and only change the one that we are typing in. And then inside this form we're going to say on submit, and it should be a handle login maybe, and then we're going to again create that function that should be const handle login, that'll be async, and then we're going to say prevent default, and if some of our inputs is empty, we're going to return from this function by providing an alert. And otherwise we're going to use try catch. If there is any error, the type of this also going to be any. If there is any error, we're going to alert that by error.message. But otherwise, if we don't have any problem, so we're going to call this sign in with email and password. So, and it'll give us a user. If there isn't any user, we're going to return from this. And otherwise, we are gonna, so maybe we could do this to like new user. If we have our user, then we're going to say router.push, that should be a lowercase, that push to home page. And then we're going to import our router from use router. Okay, with that, now we need to save this one. And after this, we're going to say console.log user if you already have, okay, or it'll going to show us if you have user or not. So let's go to our application, and now let's try to log in with this John Doe, and password should be John Doe, and now I'm going to try to log in, and yeah, it takes us to home page, and now we have our user that we can see from our console, where we have this user credential. Inside this we see our email, when do we create this one, etc. Like we have a lot of metadata. And Also, we could use this loading state where we're gonna show it. So instead of login, we're gonna say if it is loading, say login. If it is loading, we're gonna say loading. Otherwise, we're gonna say log in. And I think with that, we're gonna be good to go. And maybe to use the error handling, we're gonna do inside the use effect, we're gonna have our function. And if we have any error, we're gonna say alert the error. We're gonna save this one. Now let's try to create some errors. Go to auth page and try to log in with maybe a wrong password or 123. Now it'll gonna tell us like the wrong password. Okay, so this is how we handle our errors for now. And now we have another problem, which is that we are already signed in, but we can still visit this authentication page, and now we can sign in again and again, which is not optimal. And to fix that, we're going to go to our authentication page, and we're going to extract our user, loading, and error state from use auth state that is coming from our Firebase hooks. And then we're going to put our auth object into that, which is coming from Firebase folder and inside the Firebase file. So here we're going to check inside the use effect that we're going to say if we have a user then navigates us to the home page. So we're going to say if user rudder dot push the home page. And now we're gonna, before we save this, we're gonna say const rudder that is coming from Next.js. And now I think we can save this, and before that let's add this rudder into this dependency array and save this one. Go to our browser. Now let's go to authentication page. Now it navigates us to home page, and there's that 1 second flickering effect that it shows us this authentication page. And the reason is that first our user, so this hook is gonna check if you're logged in or not, but it'll take some time, which is maybe 1 second or maybe less than 1 second. And since this user is null, it'll render this portion. And we can prevent that by adding another state. So we're gonna say const page, so maybe page loading, and then set page loading that is gonna be a use state, and initially it's gonna be true. So first our page is loading, and if page is loading, so page is loading, then return nothing. So it doesn't render this portion. So now let's save this, and now come to browser again, go to authentication page. So for a second we see that an empty page, and then it'll show us this home page. But what is going to happen if we don't have, so if you didn't logged in, so it'll stay in this null state, right? It'll not navigate us to the home page, so we're going to be seeing nothing. So to fix this, we're going to say if it is not loading anymore, and if we don't have a user, then this set page loading should be false, which is optimal one. And we're going to add this loading into the use effect dependency array. So now if we are not logged in, it'll make this it's gonna set this page loading to false, which it allows our application to render this portion. So with that, I think now we are ready to build our home page. Let's take a look at our demo that we have here. So in the top bar, we have two buttons with a logo, and then we have a title and our problem table, which has this title, difficulty, category, solution, as well as the status field. So first we're going to build this, and we're going to add this data as hard-coded data, and then we're going to push it into our DB, and then we're going to fetch it from there. And in this case, our DB is going to be Firestore, which is a service that Firebase provides. So first let's create this Topbar, which I'm gonna be copying and pasting some code. And for that, don't get mad at me, just grab them in our GitHub gist that I will provide you in the description below. So we will come to VS Code. We're gonna create a component called Topbar, and inside we're gonna say topbar.tsx. We're gonna say tfcd, and then here we're gonna paste it just like this. We're gonna import this link component from Next, and then inside homepage we're gonna call our top bar, import it like this, and we're gonna give a class name that is gonna be bg dark layer 2 maybe, and then it'll be minimum height screen. It'll make this main full screen with this dark background. We're gonna save this, come to our browser. Yes, it is almost the same or maybe identical. So here, what we are doing is that we are making this body so full height, and then we're giving this dark BG that is coming from Tailwind config file that is this color, and in our top bar we are giving some our buttons, and we are making it our top bar 50 pixels, and basically like super basic HTML and CSS that you can take a look at for a second. And now let's build this so this title and with our table. And before doing that, let's actually put our mock data, which I will again provide you in the GitHub gist that you can copy paste into VS Code. So now let's go to our VS Code, and we're going to create a mock data folder. So I'll say mock problems, and maybe you can find it from the GitHub repo that I wouldn't delete this. I will add say problems.ts. I'm gonna paste that, which you can find it in the description below. So we have a problem type, which is gonna be every problem is gonna have an ID, title, difficulty, category, which all are gonna be string, and then order is gonna be number, which is going to be this field that you can see that is prefixing our problems. And then we also have an optional field which is going to be video ID, and this video ID is going to be the YouTube video solution that we're going to have. So some of our problems that we can see has video solutions, and some of them is coming soon. So we're going to be checking this conditionally, and we're going to render it depending on this. So with that, we have 10 problems. We can save this one, and then we're going to go to our home page where we're going to put our title, and then we're going to put our table. So we're going to go back to VS Code. We're going to paste it into here, and let's save this. Take a look at it. So we have our title as well as the title of our table, which is coming from with this heading 1 that we have this so to say HTML entities that is some kind of best practice to use, or like ESLint tell us to use it actually. So if you try to do this, it'll say, can you please replace them with one of these. So that's why I did this, and we're gonna add our emoji, and then we have this table which will, so far we're adding the head of this table. We're giving it one table row with table headings. So each of them is inside one table head or table heading. And then we have some basic CSS stuff again, like font medium, padding X1, padding Y3. So yeah, I think it's gonna be for our table. And now let's try to populate this mock data with each of these rows. So back to the VS Code, we're going to create another component called problems table, and we're going to create our folder or file problems table dot, it should be lowercase, table dot tsx, and then we're going to type tfcd, and inside it is time for me to write some HTML and CSS with you guys, because I don't want you to tell bad words about me. We're going to say table body, and inside we're gonna give it a class name. It'll be class name should be text white. For this should be enough, and then we're gonna import our problems that is coming from that mock data that we can see here, and then we're gonna map through that array. So we're gonna say problems.map, and so this autopilot, so GitHub Copilot can be sometimes annoying. That's why I'm gonna do it just like this. So for each problem, or we can call it document, and it's gonna have some index. And then for here, we're gonna create this function, and we're gonna return something here. And the reason is I'm gonna add some JavaScript code here. That's why I'm not immediately returning JSX. So here we're gonna have our table row for each of our problem, and then we're gonna give it some class names. So we're gonna say class name, and open this curly braces as well as backticks. We're gonna say if the index of it is the even, or the index of it is odd, so which we can check it just like this. If so, we are gonna say give it to bg dark layer 1. So it should be like this, and otherwise it'll gonna be nothing, so it's gonna be transparent. So we can make it just like this, and we're gonna give it t to make TypeScript or ESLint happy. We're gonna say key should be the document.id, and then inside here we're gonna give it table head. So we're gonna say table head. We're gonna give it some class names, which should be padding X to padding Y for font medium. So we're gonna say font medium, and then white space no wrap, and then text dark green S that we have initialized inside Tailwind config. So, and then we can put this solved mark, which is going to be BS check circle. Yeah, that should be like this. Now let's try to import this from React icons, and we can give it font size that is going to be 18 pixels and width of 18 as well. So just like this. Then what we can do, so we're gonna add all of our fields. Now let's just try to save this one, and why it gives us error. So maybe we did something wrong. um what it says actually, okay, maybe we should close this. Okay, and then let's save this one, go to our browser that we can see. We cannot see anything because we are not showing them into here. So after the table head, we're going to say problems table that is coming from our components. Save this one, come to here. Yeah, okay, it's not completed. The row is not completed. That's why it shows it like this. So let's continue. So after this table heading, we're going to have table data, which is going to have some classes of padding X 6 and padding Y as 4. And then we're gonna put our link that is coming from Next.js. So inside what we're gonna say document.title, and then what we should do, give it some class name that'll be, so class name on hover it'll be text blue 500 or maybe 600, and then cursor is gonna be pointer, and then obviously it's gonna have some href which will take us to problems page slash the problem ID, which is going to be toSum or the document ID. It's going to be either toSum, like reverse link list, etc., etc. If I can speak, so that should be document.title. And after that, we're going to have another table data. So table data. So all of them is kind of going to have the same class names. So for this, let's put document.difficulty, and the class name of it going to be padding X. So actually, we can make it with backticks. So it's going to be padding X6, padding Y4, and depending on its difficulty, we're going to give it some different color. That's why I made this function. So we're going to say const difficulty color, and then we're going to make it like this. So difficulty, if it's easy, then we're going to give it text. So let's just take this, and we're going to mutate this. So text dark green S. So that should be text dark green S. If it is easy, then we're gonna show it. We're gonna give it green color. I'm sorry, I made it so long. So if it is not easy, then it could either be medium or it could be so it could be hard. So in the medium case, we're gonna give it text dark, and then it's gonna be yellow. And otherwise, it's gonna be red, which is gonna be dark pink, I guess. And then depending on this, we're gonna give it this difficulty color. And inside, so we can basically say difficulty color because we are already checking the condition. And after the difficulty, we're gonna give its category, which so far I can copy this, paste it like this, and delete this backticks, delete this. I'm gonna make it single quote, and inside we are gonna have category. And after that, let me see what we have. So we're gonna have, depending on video ID. So let's just save this one, take a look at it. So this is what we got, almost the same as with this one. So maybe with some changes, but I think that looks great. So we're gonna add this solution tab, and it's gonna be it for this page, I guess. So we're gonna add another table data, or maybe we can copy this one, paste it, and change the content. We're going to say if document has a video solution or the video ID, we are going to return something else. And if it doesn't have anything, any video solutions, we're going to say we have a paragraph that is why it gives me error because I didn't complete this part. So let's say this, we're going to have AI YouTube, fill YouTube that is coming from React icons. So otherwise, we're going to say a paragraph that is saying coming soon. And for the class name, it's going to have text gray 400, and we can save this and import this one. So we're going to importing that from React icons AI. And let me see if it has any class names. Yes, it has. So font size is going to be 18, and class name it's going to have cursor, so cursor pointer, and on hover it is going to have text red 600. So save this one. Finally come back to here that we can see. Now if we click any of them, it doesn't show us the solution, but we're going to implementing that soon. And if we click any of this that has ID, that'll take us to the problem page, but since we don't have the problem page, it'll give us 404, which we're going to handle later. So I think that looks great, but we can make this one a bit bigger, which we can say font size should be 28. And now it looks better. So this is all that we need for this page. And actually, let's build the solution tab. When we click this YouTube video icons, we will get this YouTube model that we can watch the video solution. And also, I forgot to mention that now so far we can see all of our problems is solved, but this is not correct. And it is because we are putting these icons for all of the problems. And later we're going to check if we solved it depending on the data that is in the DB. And also for this line that we are checking, so each of this problem has an index, right? When we map it, we give it them index, and it's going to be starting from 0 to all the way 9 because so far we have 10 problems. So anyways, for the problems uh, that has the index as even number, it is going to be a transparent background. But if it is the odd number, it's going to be this color that we give. So 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, all of them are going to have this color. So that's why we're checking this. And also we are giving this difficulty color. And I'm just trying to make sure that we are all on the same page. And yeah, I think that should be it. Now let's try to implement this YouTube video model. So back to VS Code, where we're going to take a look at these mock problems. So some of our problems has video IDs, which looks like some random ID, but actually it is an actual ID that we fetch from my YouTube channel. So each of them is, so every video on YouTube has an ID, and we are gonna pass these IDs into our model component that looks like something like this, and it'll fetch that YouTube video depending on that ID, and then it'll populate it inside this model. So let me just show you actually. So if we visit this valid parentheses on my channel, we're going to see that in the URL bar, we have this ID that starts with XTY and ends with T and U. So back to the VS Code, into the valid parentheses that we're going to see, we have XTY and ends with T and U. So this is that ID that I copied and pasted, and you can paste your own video IDs if you have any video that is related to these problems. And now it is time for us to create that YouTube model by importing or installing a new package. So go to Google, type npm react YouTube and visit this first link. And then it'll tell us this command, which is npm I react YouTube. We're going to go to VS Code and we're going to create a new terminal where we're going to say npm I react-YouTube. So it'll install that package, and it is pretty popular that we can see here. And if we go to repository, that we're going to see it'll give us this YouTube component which comes from React YouTube, and we can pass the video ID and some other options that maybe lazy loading on what's going to happen on end, on pause, etc., etc. So let's see if it is done. Yep, it installed that, and we're gonna go to our problems table, and maybe we should put a React fragment here because we're gonna have table body, and then and we're gonna have table foot, maybe table footer, and then here I'm gonna paste, copy and paste some HTML, and I'll explain it. I don't want to waste time by writing all these CSS classes. So we created a tfood, and let's import this by from React icons and from React YouTube, that package that we installed is coming from React YouTube. And for the video ID, we paste that same ID. So that should be, oops, xty and ends with tu, which is for valid parentheses. So it is going to be loading lazy, and on cursor we have this pointer, and also we have a background overlay, or yeah, it's going to be our model. When we click that, it'll close our model. So back to our code, or our browser. Let's save this one, and now if we click, or if we don't click, it'll be right there that we can see. It'll show us this video, and we can watch it. We can forward that backwards and pause that and not close that for now. So now let's add these other functionalities. So we are going to only show this if our user wants to open that YouTube player. So for that, let's create a state where we're going to say const YouTube player, and then set YouTube player. That should be coming from React use state, and we can delete this. And initial value is going to be an object where we're going to say is open to false, and video ID will be an empty string, and we're going to import that use state. And so for close model, we can add our function, but before that, we need to open that when we click that. So let's actually make this conditionally rendering. If YouTube player is open, and then we only then want to show this model. Okay, we're gonna wrap it just like this. Now, if we go to the back to the browser, we're not gonna see that model. So when we click this, we should be change the state to open. So which is this icon, and we're gonna add a handle click function into that. So I'm gonna click here, and I'm gonna say on click, we're gonna have a function. It could be an arrow function, an inline function just like this, and it'll say set YouTube player to is open, and video ID is, so let's close this, and video ID should be that document.video ID, and we can cast it as string. And now let's save this one, and what it's gonna do when we click that icon, it'll make this is open field to true, and then it'll pass that video ID. So back to browser, when we click that, we will get this beautiful model with its ID, but now I think it was hard-coded here. Yeah, it is here, so we're gonna delete this, and we're gonna say YouTube player dot video ID. So it's gonna be this dynamic ID that we pass. Now if we save this one, back to here, so now if we click this, so we cannot close that actually. Let's refresh. Now if we click this, maybe maximum depth of binary tree, and when we click that, we'll get that video that we can see here. So now let's implement this, closing that model by clicking this and backdrop. So back to VS Code, and we're gonna go to top where we are gonna add our function, which is gonna be close model. So close model gonna be an arrow function again, which says that YouTube player is open to false and video ID is gonna be empty. So we are resetting this, and we're gonna bind this function into that close button, which is this one. So make it like this, on click, we'll call our close model. So we can just put it like this. Also copy and paste this line into this overlay that we have here. So it's going to be that background that you see here. And if we save this, now if we click that background, it'll close that. You can open our new problem solution and close it by this, and open another, close it like this. And now we can also add that functionality when we press escape keyboard. So we're going to create a use effect and initialize it just like this, or on mount, where it'll gonna say window dot event listener, or yeah, add event listener where it's going to say key down, and on key down we're going to call our function, which is going to be handle escape, and save this. And then we're going to return that by cleaning up this function, where we can make it in one line, and then create our function here, const handle escape. So it's going to be a function that's going to take in our event, and if key is escape, then we're going to call our this close model function. So we're going to save this. Now if I open our browser, open this model, if I click escape, it'll close that as well. Close escape, click escape, it closed that. So with that functionality is also out of the way, now let's try to change this top bar depending on if user logged in or not. So if you are logged in, we're gonna show a logout button here and as well as a profile image. So back to VS Code, where we're gonna go to inside Topbar, and we're gonna extract our user from our hook. So we're gonna say user that is coming from useAuthState, and we're gonna pass our authentication object and then import this. And then we're only gonna show this sign in button if we have not a user. So if you are logged out. So if you don't have a user, then can you just please show us this button? So wrap it like this. And now since you are logged in, it is not going to show us. And instead of that, it should show us a profile image, which we are going to say, if you have user, then render this portion. Oops. So inside, we're going to have our div with some class names. That is going to be class name, cursor, pointer, and it's going to be group, which is coming from Tailwind CSS. And I'm going to explain that to you. So we're going to say relative, and then we're going to have our image, which is going to be that image that we have inside our public folder. This is going to be this avatar.png. So we're going to say source, going to be inside public, and avatar.png, and alt could be user profile image. And then let me see if there is any class names. Yes, it has. So class name is going to be height 8, width 8, and rounded is going to be full for make it round. Now let's save this and go to browser, where we're going to see this image. And on hover, we would like to show the user's email. So for this, I'm going to come here and I'll paste a little bit of HTML where we can grab that from GitHub.js. So here, what we are doing is we are inside the div, we are putting our paragraph, which is going to show our user's email. And initially, its scale is 0, so we are not going to see it in the screen, but on a group hover, we're going to make it scale 100%, which group is this div. So save this one, and so with this, making this group, so we put all of these into, we make all of them into one group. So we're going to go to browser. Now if we hover over this, we're going to see that it scales from 0 to 100%. And since we are giving it some transition, duration, it looks very smooth. And also we are absoluting them with positioning, centering, and giving some orange color and background. So pretty basic HTML and CSS. Okay, now I think we are ready to build our logout button. And for this, we would like to create a new component and put the logout logic into there. And the reason being is that we don't want to, so we want to keep this toolbar component clean, and also we would like to make the logout component reusable. So maybe months passed and this application got into a different state, or maybe really the next day we would like to have a sidebar over here, and then we would like to have a logout button there as well. So that's why we would like to make that component reusable, and then we can reuse that just by calling that. So for this, I'm going to create inside the components folder a new folder that's going to be buttons. And then we're going to be putting all of our buttons into this folder. So I'll say, so the first button that we're going to have will be logout.tsx. And then we're going to type tfcd to get our boilerplate. So here we have this type that says logout props, which will, so we are not going to be using for now, or maybe until the end of the project. But in my side projects, and this is kind of my preference, that even though I'm not going to be using them, I would like to keep them. So because maybe in the future I would like to take some props into this component. And if we save this, it'll be in only one line. so it doesn't harm us. But if you'd like to delete them, you need to delete here, and then you need to remove this from this brackets. And that could be a React functional component like this. That would be okay. And let me just delete that as well. And then since this logout is gonna be button, we're gonna say we need to return a button. And then inside you are gonna have a logo, and it'll gonna be fi logout. That is gonna be coming from React icons. So let's just import that. And now this button will have some classes. So we're gonna say class name will be bg dark fill free, and then padding y 1.5, and then padding x will be 3, and also I think we'll have our cursor as pointer, and then we would like to give it some border radius. We'll say rounded, and then text should be brand orange, I guess, as always. And then yeah, this is gonna be for our class names. So let's save this one and add it into our to the top bar. So we're gonna come here, we're gonna say show us the logout. So import that, save this. Now here we see this button that we have here, and now let's make it work. So for this, into logout, we're gonna have, when we click this function, we would like to call our function that we're gonna initialize. So on click, we'll say handle, I can type handle logout. I'm gonna copy this, and then I'm gonna create this function here that'll be that will allows us to log out. So for this, let's go back to our documentation, and now let's scroll to top. We need to we need to look for something like logout or sign out that I can see here. Click that, and then now they import this hook. So we're gonna copy this and paste it here, and then import these the hook as well as our object that is coming from our Firebase file that we have here. So we are calling our this authentication object into here, and then we have our sign out function, loading state, and error state. So on click, what they do, so they call this sign out function, and they await them, but I think we don't need this because we're not going to show any alerts. So now, once they click that, we would like to call the sign out function. Okay, now save this back to browser. Now, if you click this, it'll log out, and we still show this button. It is because we need to conditionally render this. So we're gonna say if we have a user that is logged in, then you should show this logout button. So now save this, and now we're not gonna see that. Now refresh this page. And now if we click sign in button, it'll take us to authentication page, but it is not going to open that model. So for this, we need to again click this, but it is a bit too much work. What I want to do is when I click this, I would like to get that model open. That's why we need to mutate this AuthModal state that we have here. So for this, I'm come back to Topbar, and inside the sign in, when we click that button, I would like to call our function. So on click, we're gonna call this state, or we're gonna call our hook that is coming from the use recoil. So we'll say use set recoil state, and then we're gonna pass our auth model state, which is coming from, that should be import from atoms and auth model atom, that is this file. And now we are gonna assign it into a variable called set auth model state. And now inside this on click, we're gonna call that function. So inside here, we're gonna call that, and we're gonna change the is open field to true, and then type is gonna be login. Now if I save this back to here, in home page, if we click that button, it'll take us to this authentication page, and then it'll open this model. So that's great. Now we want to add this forgot password functionality, and I think eventually we're gonna be done with this authentication logic. And for this, I'm gonna go back to my documentation, and I'm gonna look for something like maybe you send password reset email. Click that. You have a full example. So I'm gonna copy these two lines, back to VS Code, I collapsed and closed everything here. So I'm gonna take Control E to get my reset password. And then inside, I'm gonna paste that what I just copied. And then I'm gonna import my use state. That should be coming from React. Use state. And then I'm gonna import this as well as our authentication object. And then format these. Okay, now we would like to use the state on change of this input. So we'll bind this function into this input, and then on submit of this form, when our user click this button, we would like to submit that. So on submit, we're gonna have handle reset function, and then I'm gonna create this up here. Is gonna be taking the event, and we would like to prevent that because we don't want our browser to refresh the page. And then so this is what Copilot recommends me, but let's make sure in the documentation. Yeah, they sent this password reset email with email as well as some um, optional objects, but I don't like that. And so they use async to get if they got a success, they alert this. And actually, maybe this is what we would like to do. Copy this and paste that, make this function async, and then delete this line, save it. Now, if we send email, then we're gonna show this alert which says email sent. Now let's save this back to here. So let's try to send it to my email. So reset password. So we didn't get that alert because there is an error. So I didn't sign up with this account into this application. So it is not going to send an email into this. But if we say johndoe@gmail.com, which we have signed in with this account, and we try to reset our password, it'll send that and it'll say like email sent. And then for our error handling, we can use a use effect where we're going to initialize it in whenever our error changes. So we're going to run that whenever our error changes, and then if there is any error, then we're going to alert that. So let's import this use effect. This error is coming from this hook that is giving us. Okay, save it. Now here, let's say try to this account. So if we send that, it'll says user not found, right? So we are done with our error handling. So now let's create a new account by maybe that should be dev my name, and it should be my name, and password should be 1234556. So register. Okay, now we have logged in and we have our email as well as homepage. Now let's say logout and I forgot my password, and I'm gonna come here. I'll say can you just send a reset password to this email. So I'm gonna reset that. It says email sent. So now let's check my email. Okay, now I am in Gmail and I can see that I got a reset password link. I'm gonna click that. It'll take me to reset password. Now let's say my new password is gonna be test12, and then save this. Um, Here, try to log in with this new password. So if I say test12 login, yeah, it logged us in because the password is updated. So I think with all these, maybe we can add a bit more user-friendly alerts. And for this, we're going to be using React Toastify npm package. Go to Google, type React Toastify npm, click that, and 1 million downloads weekly, pretty popular package. So we're going to copy this, and what it does is like we're going to be showing these cool alerts instead of sending that boring alert that we show. And you can really customize it however you want. For this, you can check the documentation, but I'm going to be showing you guys how to show error and loading as well as success messages. So back to VS Code, open a new terminal, and then paste what just we copied. Okay, now it is installed. Instead of showing this alert, we'll say toast.success, and with this message, and import this toast, and maybe that should be positioned as, so we can pass an object for our options, and we'll say position, that should be top tenor, and it should auto close in maybe after 3 seconds. And then now it's not gonna work because in our app we should add um the container of this toast. So we'll say toast container, and we're gonna import that from React Toastify, just like this. Then we also need to put the CSS. So you can see that from the documentation as well. That we can see they are adding this container as well as the CSS file. And now if we save this back to here, now let's try to send an email. So reset password. It'll says this beautiful, it'll show us this beautiful alert. And you can even make the mode dark. I think it should be control space to get the options. The theme could be yeah, dark. Save this. Again, now let's send another one. Yeah, now it's in the dark mode. Okay, that's cool. Now we can add that post into other part of our application that we added so far. Maybe when we log in or we sign up. So inside here, so do we show any alerts? So maybe instead of this, maybe we'll say post dot error as well as our error message. Import this, and these options could be there. Import post from React Toastify. Now let's try to log in with a wrong email and password. So that should be John Doe and password is random. Now try to log in. It'll show this React Toastify. Okay, now we can add this just by doing this in one line. Or like even we can change this with this alert. Save this. Yeah. Okay, this is also out of the way. So why did I get 2? Okay, that was a bug. Okay, now with this also out of the way, I think we should maybe add this problem page that we see. So when we click one of these, we will get into the problem page. So it'll load this in the server side, and then we have our description, our examples, our constraints, our code editor, as well as test cases that we can switch between them, and it'll update the UI. And then we have our font size changer or adjuster, whatever you say. So we can make it small, bigger. We can go to full screen mode. We can exit that, start our timer, and submit our code. And then so we can reset that. So everything that you can see here and I mentioned in the intro. So this is gonna be the end of our part 1. And I think if I split this tutorial into multiple parts, it'll be easier for you guys to follow along. And if you like this tutorial, please like and subscribe because it'll help the channel a lot. And thanks for watching, and hopefully I will see you in the next part.